to have a VCR, and with each step forward, they'll become more entrapped in the same totalitarian system that is much more subtle than the crude and simple one that many of them have overthrown. What a joy to overthrow a crude and simple totalitarian system. I mean, all of us enjoyed that, right? Dancing on the wall was fun because that system was so crude and not postmodern enough. It didn't understand that there are walls you can build that cannot be seen between people. Those are harder walls to overthrow. The walls they build between different races and classes and sexes in our society, those walls are much more difficult to overthrow than crude and stupid walls like the Great Wall of China, which doesn't wall anybody out, it just walls you in. But the stupid forms of totalitarianism build these walls in a way that people can storm them. The global system that I'm talking about, not is already here perhaps, but is on its way, perhaps. About the present and future, you can just guess. I mean, that's what scientists do too. Make their best guess. You can just guess, but about this system, the walls will be much harder to storm because they won't be the kind that will be available for storming. It's hard to storm the walls on TV. In fact, you'll already, like in Total Recall, have the feeling you've already stormed them. You've already, I mean, you know, the guy in Total Recall, well, he's already won the revolution. It's cool. He did it in 10 minutes sitting in a chair injected with the same emotion. So those kind of walls and that kind of totalitarianism, I suspect many people in the world don't suspect is the dark side of the American dream. I hope that there will be forms of resistance. But the basis of that hope today is slim. I'd be less than honest if I said it was more than slim. I expect, and with Freud, hope that the final word hasn't been said. I don't think that, in a way, it is part of this system that final words are sayable, even in this system. And I will have to say this about it, that it has to re-inject, and I haven't got a good argument for this in the time remaining, it does have to re-inject resistance into it in some form or another. It's important that it at least put up a simulation of opposition. That's why the most powerful anti-war movement America could have now would be for the last few of us that are against the war to disappear completely so that it looks like those polls are 100%. And many of my friends have started throwing off the poll numbers and joining the pro-demonstrators because the worst statement we can make about our democracy is to be unanimously for something which will make itself evident it's no democracy. So the most radical thing, in our culture, struggles will have to become more sophisticated. Instead of fighting Bush, maybe the best way to fight him is to agree with him. Say, hell yes, bomb them all and get right with them. Talk all of your wildest friends into it. Say, yeah, because once 100%, that's saturation. No opposition, Bush will go. What will we do for a TV spot? They'll have to start hiring the CIA to go out and demonstrate. They would. I mean, there's no opposition. That's what we used to say we were a democracy, was the opposition. So there'll be all kinds of new strategies. And I have not yet given up on that last remaining spots of clarity that are around in the world. To quote George Bush, those 1,000 points of light. Well, it might turn out that they might not be what he suspects. I'm just not willing quite yet, and I don't know, I guess your questions will be, why not, to write radical democracy's final obituary. And yet, and this is the point where I have to say, I don't have an argument. It's taken me a long time. I just don't have an argument about why not to write its final obituary. I've seen too much of this especially the last 15 years or so, of Reagan and Bush, not to feel like writing that last obituary for radical democracy, or even for these private moments that I have tried to steal from this text, where we have that clear thought in our own mind and we're sure it's not the unreflected part being produced by our culture. I'm not quite, even under these conditions, ready to write the final obituary. I don't have any argument, but at least I have this much going for me. I mean, it's, now I'm really going to go back to an archaic text called the New Testament. Don't have a good revolutionary argument to hook you with at the end. I mean, in a way, that's why I said preaching. I feel like Paul before the Corinthians, and they're all real cynical, and I can see that I'm pretty cynical, you're pretty cynical. St. Paul was pretty cynical. All the Corinthians are going, this resurrection in the body stuff. Kind of like some of you may go, this radical democracy stuff. What do you mean resurrection in the body, St. Paul? What do you mean freedom, radical democracy, enlightenment? What the hell are you talking about? Well, if you read Corinthians, it's very strange. The people at Corinth are really questioning Paul very tough. You know, resurrection in what body? When I was 16, 15, 14? Where will I be and stuff? Well, please, this is my last reading assignment, and it's a widely known text. It's the Bible. Look at Paul's answer in Corinthians. It's a masterpiece of sophistry, rhetoric, and bitter invective. No arguments, because how could you have an argument for such a utopian thing? You couldn't. But Paul does have one consideration that is very persuasive to the Corinthians, that if this hope goes, everything goes with it. It's a desperate form of argument, but these are desperate times. If the hope goes to reconstruct our lives in that way, everything else will go with it. Everything. And not in that neat, fun way like the apocalypse, where you all get to Rod Serling yourselves out together, and me too, but everything human will go too. So if there's no other reason to hope that things will change, then hope was, after all, only given in the first place for those who were hopeless. Hope was given for the sake of the hopeless, not for people who are comfortable. Philosophy, as I said, doesn't provide comfort to the comfortable. It shouldn't. It doesn't even provide comfort to the afflicted, as you may have found out if you're afflicted. It is, as I've tried to warn you when I started, disconsolate in principle. Hegel says it in a scarier way. He says, dialectics or philosophy does not run from death and devastation, but it tarries with it a while and looks it in the face. So that's all I've tried to do with our culture in this last couple of hours, which may have seemed strange to some of you. You may think, oh, things aren't that bad, because after all, the TVs are still running, the people are for it, and everybody's happy, and I'll go back to my normal life. And unfortunately, giving talks like this is part of my normal life. But don't forget as you watch the TV that the fires of Belsen burn in the TV tubes every night. Don't forget that the structural principles of our society are as barbaric in their structure as they ever were, perhaps more so. Perhaps more so. We have to remember we're talking at a historical moment when most folks want to nuke somebody again. Why not?